Let's talk about Venser. I'm still going through my TikTok requests, and Venser is a character people have had a lot of questions about over the years, for good reason. He's a character who lived and died before a lot of the current player base started playing Magic. Or maybe they started around Scars of Mirrodin and never really knew much about him. Venser was created for the Time Spiral block, the story that culminated in the Mending which changed the nature of the Planeswalker Spark. Teferi is investigating the time rifts and discovers that Venser and Radha, that's her before she became beefier Step on Me Mommy, both have Planeswalker sparks, but they're different. They're like mutated sparks. And this is because of the time rifts on Dominaria. Radha grew up very close to the Skyshroud Rift, and Venser grew up very close to the Urborg Rift. Venser is an artificer, and he has invented this device he calls the ambulator that is able to teleport everyone around. Now, without getting too much into the plot of the entire Time Spiral novel, because it pulls in so many elements from the entirety of Magic history beforehand, like 15 years. But the gist is that he is basically the first of the Neo-Walkers, the Planeswalkers as we know them today, who've been significantly depowered. And that his ambulator wasn't really an invention that worked at all. It was his Planeswalker spark. He was just planes hopping, like planeswalking for a second and then reappearing on the plane. So basically, he was a teleporter. During a brief stint on Midara, he and Radha are tricked into basically resurrecting Nicol Bolas, who was killed, but whose spirit lingered beyond the Talon Gates rift. And because their Planeswalker sparks are uniquely tied to the rifts, Bolas is able to regain a corporeal form. Teferi shows up and tries to duel him, but literally gets cut to ribbons. He gets better, though, because there's still Old Walker power here. He meets and befriends Karn, although the time frame is a little less than you would get from the Scars of Mirrodin block. He only knows Karn for like a day. But he helps Karn seal the Tolarian Rift that Karn created when he broke time on Talaria originally, and then it got worse when Baron blew it all up to kill the Phyrexians there. It's a whole thing. Just go with it. But anyway, as Venser was helping Karn, Karn lost his Planeswalker spark, felt a darkness start to take hold of him, and with the last of his power flung himself back to Mirrodin, telling Venser not to follow. Fast forward 60 years, and Venser has a terminal illness that he got trying to teleport some dark artifact. And he's basically taking a cocktail of drugs to keep himself alive. He gets recruited by Koth and Elspeth to travel to Mirrodin and find out what's going on. Of course, he has to sort of be persuaded by Koth surrounding his head with solid rocks that he can't breathe, so that he's forced to planeswalk with them. But once there, he realizes the threat, and they realize the new Phyrexian invasion of the surface is basically already over. The Mirrans have lost. And Venser says, well, my good friend Karn made this place, maybe he's the one that can undo this. So the trio journey to Mirrodin's core, where they rescue Malira, who is strangely immune to the Phyrexian completion, and thanks to an interaction with Blink Moths, is able to pass that immunity along to Koth, Elspeth, Venser, and then a lot of the Mirrans at large. Venser and the trio continue their journey, but are horrified to discover that Karn's already succumbed to Phyresis, and that it was sort of his mad ravings that caused the invasion of the surface in the first place. So Venser, knowing he doesn't have a whole lot of time left, transfers his Planeswalker spark into Karn. In the novel, it says literally his heart, but I think it's meant to be more metaphorical. With Venser's spark, and importantly, Venser's new immunity to the glistening oil, Karn is restored. And Venser is dead. I believe they either burn his body or sink him into the Quicksilver Sea, something like that. Basically, Venser had a lot of knowledge of old Phyrexian technology, including their old interplanar technology, and even though it doesn't really work anymore, they didn't want to give the Phyrexians that kind of head start. Unfortunately, the Phyrexians are able to find his body, and he is completed into sort of a weird mix of Venser and Memnarch, and is just this creepy corpse puppet now. Because this question always comes up, Planeswalker sparks by themselves do not give immunity to completion to the glistening oil. In the times of Old Walkers, Old Phyrexia did not actively seek to just complete people like an infection. That is entirely a new Phyrexia thing based on a weapon that was developed at the end of the war. Glistening oil has been around for a long time, but it was never weaponized in exactly this way until the modern day. Karn got Venser's spark, his soul, that was, through Mira, given immunity to glistening oil. The reason the completed planeswalkers from later were able to retain their lives and in some cases their spark afterward was because the Phyrexians specifically had to not do as full a completion job on them to keep them functionally alive and with souls. Anyway, that is the story of Venser.